Hey you guys, Jessie here from Urban Legends Antiques, and this week I am bringing you a dark academia collab with Indie Annie Jones. I'm going to be making some chocolates that I'm going to put in this tin, and then I'm going to make over some of these Valentine's Day candy boxes, and I'm going to sell them at my brother-in-law's shop, and I'm going to put a few on my website for purchase as well. I just got in a new shipment of Jamie Ray vintage stencils, and I have a bunch of her Valentine's Day stencils that I've been super excited to use. I also have this Cottage lace stencil that was done by Vintage Retail Therapy by Mara, and I'm going to leave a link in the description box for all of these items. I don't sell the Prima transfer, so I'm going to leave a link for my friend who does. I also pulled out a bunch of my Chalky Chicks paint. I have Sweet 16, Paris Pink, Loganberry, Beechwood, Starless Night, and then I have a Debbie's DIY liquid patina. First color on deck is Chalky Chicks Cancun Blue. To me, it looks more like a robin's egg blue or a lovely Paris blue. It's some leftover paint from a dresser I was painting earlier this week. I'm just using it because I don't want to waste it. And as you can see, it's a really pretty color. The next color I chose is Beechwood. It's a lovely gray-brown color. When I was researching what the dark academia aesthetic was, I was delighted to find that it was more like a Harry Potter vibe, or old dusty libraries, Victorian romance, Gothic revival kind of a style. And I was super excited to take part in this collaboration. While I can appreciate a white on white look, I'm tired of it. I just feel like I've seen it everywhere. And the same goes with Modern Farmhouse. I love Modern Farmhouse. I want to see something different. So I'm really, excited to do Dark Academia. I'm using Starless Night by Chalky Chicks. It's their blackest black to paint over this tin. It's just too shiny, and I want to put a stencil over it as well. So I'm giving a black base to give it a matte look before I go in with my stencils. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Urban Legends Antiques. I'm using Paris Pink by Chalky Chicks on both of my Hershey's miniature candy boxes. I don't plan on using any white in any of my projects today. I'm excited to be using some colors and having more of the dark academia vibe. I'm trying to lean more towards a romantic, Gothic, Victorian feel while honoring the dark academia look. This is Debbie's DIY Pennies from Heaven. It's her copper patina, and it's super pigmented. I love to use this color as a base because it's so shiny and pretty. And then look at this as a bonus. It matches the packaging perfectly. I love that. Here we go, first stencil up, and it looks like it was made for a candy box. It's a little bit too big for my little Russell Stover candy box, so I'm going to only use the Cupid inside. Since I already have Pennies from Heaven out, I'm going to put this down on top of my Beechwood painted box as my first layer. I'm using the swirling technique to paint my stencil onto my candy box, and one of the things I've learned is the bigger the stencil, the bigger your stencil brush should be. And here we go, first layer down. It's gorgeous. For my black heart, I'm using the Be Mine stencil by Jamie Ray Vintage. The first color that I'm using is Loganberry by Chalky Chicks, and I'm going to do a shadowing effect, or like a shading effect, where I'm going to move the stencil over just a little bit and then go right over it with the Pennies from Heaven. This is from the Valentine's French word pack. It's L'amour. Oh my gosh, I am going to butcher these French words, so please forgive me ahead of time. Now that my stencil brush is properly offloaded, I'm going to stencil the word L'amour in Beechwood by Chalky Chicks, and then I'm going to use this stencil. I only want to use the bottom part of it to stencil the flowers on the bottom of my candy box. I think that's really pretty, and I want to add a couple of little hearts into the negative space that is left on the box. And I'm not 100% sure if I like this. You see how I'm pausing and looking, I'm like, maybe I like it, I don't know. But I think I went too far. I'm gonna set this one aside while I decide if I like it or not and move on to my next project. This stencil is part of the Valentine's Minis stencil pack from Jamie Ray Vintage, and I'm going to use it on my copper heart, and I'm using the Beechwood, that lovely gray brown, as my base color to paint Cupid. Cute, love it. Again, please excuse my French. This one that says, I think it says Carte Postale on the top of it. This is part of the Valentine's French Mini Words Pack A from Jamie Ray Vintage. I'm really enjoying using these colors on the Valentine's Day candy boxes. The dark academia aesthetic is super pleasing to my eye. I love it. Since the Eiffel Tower is too big to fit onto any of the candy boxes, I'm going to stencil the word amour along the side of my candy box that has Cupid on it, just for another layer of color. I've decided that I don't like this one. I ended up just glaring at it for a while, and instead of like repainting it and trying to re-stencil it, I'm going to cover the entire thing up with part of a transfer instead. The beauty of crafting and making your own creations is that if you don't like it, you can just paint right over it or cover it up and do it another way and make it something that you like, something that's pleasing to your eye. I've cut out one of these beautiful flowers from the transfer, and I'm just putting it right on top of the candy box, right over the stencil mistake that I did, and I'm going to see how it turns out afterwards. The stencil was a little bit too big for the box, so I'm just trimming it right up to the edge. The contrast of that pretty blue color next to that garnet red is super pleasing to my eye, and I think it has a very romantic Victorian look to it that fits with the dark aesthetic perfectly. I'm just doing a light burnish to my transfer to make sure that it's adhered nicely to the top of the box. I still want to use the word l'amour on this candy box, so I'm going to stencil right over my transfer, and I'm using that pretty Cancun blue color again. I've been working on adding more layers to my crafts, and I really like that I repeated that blue color from the base of the box on top of the transfer. Last but not least is my gift for my Chuckles, my sweet man. I am making him some chocolates, and this stencil says, I don't know what it says, but I think it's like supposed to be an advertisement for a patisserie. Look how pretty it is. I'm still using the Midnight Floor transfer by Prima, and I'm just cutting off pieces of it and I'm adding it onto this candy box now. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Give this video a thumbs up and hit the notification bell so that way you know when I have new videos coming out. Also, if you could share this video with your family and friends, I would really appreciate it. Thanks so much. One of my favorite things about collabing with other YouTube creators is that when the challenge is given out, all of a sudden you're looking at your crafting supplies and your paint in different ways and thinking, how am I going to use this to fit the challenge, or in this case, the design aesthetic, and it really inspires you. I'm using Je t'aime on this one. I really wanted to call it Je t'aime, but I know that's wrong. It's just the way I pronounce things is awful. But this is not awful. This is gorgeous. I love it. For my last candy box, I'm doing the Cottage Lace Stencil by Vintage Retail Therapy by Mara. She collaborates with Jamie Ray Vintage on her stencils, and I really like the stencil. I thought when I first saw it that it would have like a really cool Gothic Halloween vibe, because the way it looks is Victorian, but if you did like black and purple or black and red or even the black and white, it would have like a vintage lace look to it. For this one, I was trying to do more of a like Victorian botanical theme, or a person who dries or presses flowers. Dried and pressed flowers and pressed in, or like the dried insects, is like a huge theme with dark academia, and so that's what I was trying to go with on this one. It's completely outside of my comfort zone. I've never done anything like this before, and that is exactly what I was looking for in this collab. Now that all my candy boxes have dried, I'm going to put a coat of clear wax on them in preparation for adding a little bit of antique wax to them. After all, this is a dark academia collaboration, not a light academia collab, so I want to add just a little bit of antique wax to darken all of these up just a little bit more. I'm going to lightly buff them all right before I antique wax them. Here we go, my antique wax is out. I have had calamity strike with this stuff before, so I'm using it very, very sparingly because it spreads super, super easily and just completely coats your whole piece if you're not careful. So I'm lightly dabbing on all of the edges before I start to wipe it in. Also, this is the Bear antique wax, not the Jolie one that I normally use. So maybe that's why it does this. So here you can see those little brown circles is the antique wax that I put on, and you have to be very careful with this stuff because it is super pigmented. It will completely change the color of your piece. It will all end up looking brown, and I do want to have like the pops of color. I don't want it to look burnt or just very like brown and dirty looking. I just want it to have like an antiqued aged look. And last up is Chuck's tin. I did make the candies. They came out awful. I will show you at the end. And here they are, all done. The finished products from my Dark Academia Challenge. I was scared to try out this aesthetic, but I'm so glad that I did because I truly love the results and I feel so inspired to continue creating. Once again, my name is Jessie from Urban Legends Antiques, and thanks for coming along for the ride. Well, the candy making turned into a hot mess, so I guess I'm just gonna buy some for Chuck instead. Sorry, babe.